Welcome back to Sparks of Joy Studio. I'm Natalie, and in today's video, I am teaming up with Kendra from Late Night Creations to kind of do a mix between a Thrift Switch Flip challenge and a challenge where we use IOD, evergreen IOD products. That's what I'm calling them today. So basically, things that IOD has put out, stamps, molds, transfers, whatever, something that can be used all year. So it is not any of the limited release, it is not any of the holiday IOD products. The items that we are using in today's challenge must be evergreen items, things that are available, still available by any of the stockists that you may shop with. So let's see what I've created and then make sure to head on over because I've already looked at Kendra's thumbnail and it is incredible. So I haven't even seen her video and I'm already excited to see what she did with what I sent her. All right, let's go. All right, for our first project, I have this Christmas tree. It looks like it should be a candle holder. Even Kendra wrote that in her message that she sent me in the box. And neither one of us could figure out how to get it open because you would expect to open it to be able to put a little tea light candle in it. Anyway, I wasn't a huge fan of the little stars and I knew that I couldn't open it. So I decided instead of that, I would do something where I could almost cover up the stars and give this Christmas tree a new look. I'm using the frames. I don't know if it's frames 1 or frames 2, but it's a frames mold by IOD. And I am going to be casting several of this scalloped frame. I think it's got a scallop to it, in order to try to cover up the stars around the tree, the entire part of the tree. Now with each frame that I cast, I cut it in half or as close to half as I could and had some Titebond Quick and Thick and was gluing the each half onto my Christmas tree. So you could see that I started this already. I'm going to take the Titebond Quick and Thick and I am going to go all the way around the tree with these castings. I'm trying to find ways to cover up as much of those stars as I can, knowing that I'm probably going to have to overlap some of the clay. Everything with this project was going great. It was looking good until I came back the next day and all of the clay had cracked. I was devastated. So I ended up luckily finding this amazing channel, Yvette DIY. She has amazing tutorials on different types of clay projects, but the one that I really was happy to see, I guess, in the midst of this project was a specific video on the best and worst types of clay. So based on her recommendations, I ended up choosing to quickly go into Amazon and order some creative paper clay, which I ended up using for the next step in this project. As you can see, I have now switched up my plan. This is the Faux Bois mold by IOD, and I have cast several of them using that creative paper clay and adhered them using Titebond Quick and Thick and just a touch of water to kind of round out the top of the tree. I apologize, none of that's on video. I felt like at a loss and I completely forgot to even try. I'm now mixing up these two colors of Fusion. I have Bayberry by Fusion and Acadia Pear by Fusion, and I am mixing these colors together to paint the base of this tree. I'm going to be covering the entire thing in this gorgeous shade of green. I completely forgot to mention this. Before I started painting, what I did do is I took the entire project outside and I sprayed it with a clear glaze sealer, a spray sealer. And I did that because I wanted to kind of seal it in. I wanted to protect that clay. I was hoping that it wouldn't crack. I mean, I was really trying here. And then, and I also was curious to see what it would look like with a more glossy finish. I ended up going in a different route by the end of this video, which you will see, but it was cool to see that, and I definitely want to try that in a future video, especially considering that what's huge right now is that kitschy Christmas, and I guess I consider some of those clay projects where you have that glossy finish to be very kitschy. So one of the great things about mixing paints is you get some unique colors. One of the challenges is when you need to do a second coat, trying to match that color is very difficult. So I ended up just getting out some Aviary by DIY, and now I am painting on the second coat with this color, which is, again, a gorgeous shade of green. Actually, one of Kendra's favorites, so I kind of feel like it works out perfectly for you, Kendra. So I ended up painting the second coat with Aviary. I covered the entire piece, and then I did take it outside and spray sealed it to seal in that paint. This time when I did the spray sealer, I used a clear matte finish. I have this mold of these stars. It is actually one of 3 that I found at the Goodwill bins, and so I did cast one of them to create this star to put at the top of the tree, and I wanted it to be very bright and shimmery, shiny, so I decided to use some rub and buff. So that in the color, I think I ended up choosing Gold Leaf. I went through a bunch of them and I really looked at them, and the color that I felt was the most vibrant and really would give the effect that I wanted to this piece was that Gold Leaf rub and buff. So that's what I ended up using to cover this entire star. Then I went back to my now sealed aviary on the tree, and I'm going to be using some gold gilding wax. This is by DIY. I love the shimmery nature of this wax. It's got a very different way of going on to a piece compared to the rub and buff. I think the rub and buff is perfect if you want a very stark, very I don't know how to explain it, but like I think that let's put it this way: the gilding wax by DIY, I think, is a little bit more shimmery, a little more translucent when it goes on, and so it does end up being, even though it's more delicate, it still offers that glimmer that you want to see with the gold. The rub and buff is a very, very kind of opaque finish, in my opinion, and this is just like kind of, my more novice style, or my experience level is very novice, and so that's how I feel about these 2 different kinds of gold wax or gold finishing. So I'm going to cover the entire piece. What I am doing is taking my finger, rubbing it on very delicately over the details, and then I am going to wipe some of it back so that it does end up being more of a shimmer, not so much of a full coverage onto the piece. Look at that. I take some Type Bond Quick and Thick and add just a dab to the 2 base points of the star, and then I'm going to adhere it, let it dry, and our project is done. Definitely a lengthy project, but I do love the end result. For our next project today, I have these 2 dice that Kendra sent me, and I absolutely love them. They were a perfect shape, and they were also very solid. Like these are great dice. So thank you, Kendra. Kendra always sends me the best stuff whenever we do these flip challenges. I am painting both of these dice with 2 coats of a creamy white paint. This is a chalk paint by Dixie, Belle, and it is in the color Buttercream. I happened to see that it was on sale earlier this week on Amazon, so I picked up some because this is a color I will use often through the holiday season. I also have this little, I don't know, what is it, a mini cake pan or something like that, there was a set of 2 of them that I had gotten, and I think this was in probably a mystery box that I got from Sammy or a whatnot sale. I honestly can't remember. Maybe it was a whatnot sale from Royce. I don't know. Anyway, I had 2 of them, and I have already adhered a bead on the top of them. Each of them looks like this, and I'm going to paint them with multiple coats of a white paint. This paint, I believe, is vintage linen, but I ended up deciding to use that same creamy white paint, the Buttercream by Dixie Belle. I have several scraps of the paint inlays from various paint inlays that IOD has. I'm going to be using this first one and just cutting out the parts of the inlay that have the flowers on them. So there is another part of the inlay that has kind of like a design you can see in like a little bit of a it's a creamy white, but it actually ends up coming out a little bit more greenish. I used some of that, but what I really wanted to focus on was those beautiful flowers that would offer a good contrast. I have misted all of the inlays on the paint side, and now I'm putting on my second coat of that creamy white chalk paint, and then I am going to spritz the inlay again just a little bit and lay it down gently onto the piece while the paint is still wet. So I want to find a way to get this pattern or these florals around the entire part of what I am turning into a kind of snow cap or a snow hat. It is not the easiest because you see there are those divots within this little hat, but I'm okay with the fact that it might not come out perfect. I think what I'm really looking for is that more vintagey style, which may lend itself to having some pieces that are not all the way covered. Once I have that inlay laid down, I do mist the outside of the inlay piece again, that transfer sheet, and now I'm just pressing it right now into those little divots that are inside of that part of what I'm calling a hat now. And I'm going to go all the way around the piece on the top part. The bottom part where you see those ridges, I'm actually going to be painting that a different color. So I'm focusing I'm focusing specifically on the top half of the hat with this inlay. For my second hat, I will be using this blue inlay, and I am just cutting out some little pieces of it, and I'm going to be focusing on the bottom part of the hat. So I will be doing the same process. I'm misting the two inlay pieces with the paint side up, letting it sit while I paint on my second coat, then misting it again very lightly and laying it onto the hat so that it goes all the way around. This one was a little bit tricky. They both were a little tricky in their own way, but I think one of them started sliding on me, and so I had to kind of figure out a way to make sure it didn't do that. I was really scared it was going to end up messing up the quality of the inlay design, but it didn't, which was lucky. I am going to go all the way around this piece, kind of create a rim of the hat. I set that aside to dry for about an hour, and now I am coming back and using a damp rag, and then in some cases I'm going to lightly mist it, but I'm trying really hard to be mindful of that because I've had some issues with some inlays before where I ended up getting the paper too wet, and that ended up smearing a little bit of my paint. I'm dabbing it and then slowly peeling back the paper to reveal the inlay underneath. You'll notice that some of it does come off a bit. I knew it was going to happen by the way that the inlay went on. I'm okay with it. Like I said, this is just to add some detail. The main part of this is that I wanted it to look like a snow hat, and I think I'm achieving that. I came back to my two dice, and now I'm going to be painting on some adorable snowman faces. I started trying to use the base of my waxing brush for the eyes, but I ended up realizing that it was probably just easier because of how big they were. It was easier for me to just go ahead and paint them on myself. I actually am pretty impressed with how round and even I got my two circles. I am using Coal Black by Fusion, and I did the two eyes with the paintbrush, and then I used the base of the paintbrush to dot on the little dots that I need for the mouth. I did both of them using this method, and then I came back with some Fire Starter by DIY to paint on the noses. Okay, this is where I should have just let everything be, but I decided to take an extra step, which caused me to take another 5 steps. I wanted to paint on some eyelashes, and it looked really cute in the beginning, but when I went to go do the second one, I messed up a lot. I ended up having to come back and fix it, which took me painting another 3 coats right on there and then repainting the eye. So in the end, I probably should have just let it be, but it does look cute. I do end up with a girl snowman and a boy snowman. I added some Prom Queen to the blue hat, as well as some Hay Sailor to the top little pom-pom that's going to be at the top of the hat. And then I did clear wax to seal it, and now I'm coming back with some grunge gray mixed with some dark wax to kind of age it up a little bit. For the pink hat, I ended up painting the bottom and the pom-pom on the hat in a dusty pink color. It's actually a mix between Rose Water by Fusion and some white paint. I've had this mixture for quite a while. Clearly, I don't use pink very much. So then I ended up finishing up the pink hat the exact same way you see me doing this blue hat here, with the clear wax and then followed by that grunge gray mixed with some dark wax to make it look a little bit more aged. And I do not seal or glue these pieces onto the tops of my snowmen. Instead, I am just staging them together for now, just in case I decide to use these as ornaments. That's also why I decided not to fill in the whole of the bead, because originally my plan was to make these into ornaments. Now I'm trying to decide if I'm going to keep this as a set. Thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday for this very special Thrift Switch Flip challenge. I just want to remind you that I have 30% off the 30th of the month, so make sure you check out my website and save up for the 30th when you can get everything 30% off, no code needed. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you soon.